Today on the show, Club Spotlight returns, but it's the World Cup edition. And now we're moving on down the line, our list of nations who have qualified this year for their first ever World Cup. That would be Curaçao, that would be Uzbekistan, that would be Cape Verde or Cabo Verde. And today's topic of discussion, the Middle Eastern nation of Jordan, precariously placed between Israel, Syria, and Saudi Arabia. I can't imagine what problems might arise there.
Yeah.
They have managed to overcome any geopolitical challenges and qualify for World Cup 2026 in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. David is going to tell us all about how they got here, their history as a footballing nation, and what's next for them in the coming years. All that after the jingle. Live from San Jose, California, and Brooklyn, New York, it is the Any Given Thursday podcast, Club Spotlight World Cup edition. I don't know what that sound was. It was a combination of two different radio noises merged into one. We're here to talk about Jordan today, David. And by we, I mean you, because I am not risking my career on this one.
Yeah, so that's why I got the Jordan podcast, because
More your skill set
I'm willing
than mine.
to take risks. I'm willing to take risks. But no, Jordan, as you said, qualified for their first ever World Cup. They'd been to the Intercontinental Playoffs one time before in 2014, but they drew Uruguay, who are obviously a much stronger nation historically, ended up losing that one. And this is probably the best Jordan team we've seen in history. They've been performing in qualifiers, in Arab Cups, in Asian Cups. They are progressing overall across the soccer world, and I was really intrigued to see kind of how they got here. As you'll see when we talk a little bit more about it, I was left a little still intrigued because I couldn't find a lot of information
Yeah.
about how they've developed from where they had been to now. But I think the best place to start with Jordan is a brief little overview of their history, which there's a lot of it. What was that?
How's your
How's
Arabic?
my air?
Yeah, how's it coming along?
It's not great. I could try asking. I think my dad knows some Arabic, so I could talk to him.
Makes sense. He's
Ask
worked
for
in
some
the
lessons. Yeah,
he's
spent
worked
a
in
few years
Arabic-speaking regions.
living in the Arabic world for we'll say for work. That's the best way to put it. As an occupying force, I don't know. But
Oh boy.
yeah, the history of Jordan. This is very summarized because it's one of the oldest places in the world. Essentially, as soon as we had civilization, Jordan was one of those civilizations.
Was
There's
civilized.
there's people there dating back around 60,000 years. It's one of the first places people went when humans started leaving Africa. Amman, the capital city, and the region to which around half of Jordanians live, has had people living there for around 10,000 years. It's one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. To put it in context for some listeners, biblical kingdoms like Moab are in what is now modern day Jordan. The ancient wonder Petra, which was built around 7,000 years ago, is in Jordan. That's probably their biggest international claim to fame, is Petra. But as we get through kind of the super ancient times, biblical times, as we get toward kind of the Middle Ages into the early modern era, it starts to become a very poor region. It gets much more arid than it had been in ancient times, so hard to do a lot of large-scale farming. There's only one port in the area, which limited their ability to kind of engage in the broader economy, which shifted to a lot of coastal market cities, kind of became where money and power were being centered, and Jordan, as predominantly an inland country, got pretty poor. Then it became part of the Ottoman Empire, and that didn't help things because as the Ottoman Empire gets toward its later stages, it becomes very Turk-centric, and they start to really push against giving rights and investing in non-Turkish areas. And as an Arab country, Jordan was not treated particularly well by the Ottomans toward the end of it. Uh, Aftermath of World War II, with the British and French support, the Hashemite family kind of lead a revolt against the Ottomans. They end up being the monarchs of the new, at the time it was called Transjordan, but it's still a British mandate, so essentially a colony at the time, but it's being led by the Hashemite family, who are still in power today. They get their full independence after World War II, when the West begins to start its decolonizing process. Jordan's able to negotiate for independence and become a semi-constitutional monarchy. So they have like a Senate and a House of Representatives, but the Senate is appointed by the king. So all the senators are appointed by the king. And the House has some form of election. I couldn't really figure out exactly how it's done, because it seems like
Is
there's
this when
not
they become
really...
Cisjordan?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so this is now just
You're
actual
welcome
Jordan.
for that joke, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah. They are still have this monarchy framework, although their current king, Abdullah II, has implied that he wants to kind of move it toward a full-scale parliamentary system, with the crown being more akin to that of the British monarchy, where they really just have a lot of money but don't have to do
Yeah,
any
they don't
work.
have to do anything. Yeah, that sounds pretty
Yeah,
good. I would like that
it
too.
does sound really nice. It's not by any means a progressive country, but it does stand out, I think, a little bit in comparison to the countries around it in terms of giving rights to more ethnic minorities and to female citizens as well. 15 members of the 130-person house have to be women. Currently, there's 20, so they've gone above their minimum quota. They have a minimum quota for Christians, for Circassians, Chechens as well. So they do a better job than most countries in the Middle East of trying to work with their ethnic minorities. But also,
That's interesting.
yeah, it is interesting, because it's not like, especially as a monarchy, you kind of think of those as typically being very
I didn't know that.
ethnocentrist, right? And wanting to kind of prioritize their own ethnicity. But their monarch he married a Palestinian woman, which was met with a lot of controversy, but I think has kind of helped them progress throughout the 21st century, because they've taken on so many Palestinian refugees. Population of Jordan, when it got its independence, was only around 1 million. It's now 11 million people. It's largely because they've taken in so many Palestinian refugees, around 2.5 million, over 1 million Iraqi refugees, and over 1.5 million Syrian refugees. So it's kind of become the refugee center for a lot of these conflict-ridden places in the Middle East. And a lot of them end up moving to Jordan to try to find some form of stability, because that's been... I'm not going to stand here and be like, ooh, the king is good, because I don't think monarchy is good in any form, but they do seem to really prioritize stability, and I think that's helped a lot with what's all going on around them in a very fraught part of the world right now.
What does that mean for their ruling? I mean, this is starting to turn into like like a New York Times podcast, but what does that do for their relationship with their bordering nations who are constantly in conflict with one another? Are they just like a middle ground? Like, hey, we're just here.
So they've had very tense relationships with Israel pretty much from the start.
Who hasn't?
Yeah. Jordan used to control part of the West Bank during the 50s and 60s, and that also led to difficult relations with nearby Islamic powers. Egypt in particular has been Jordan's kind of best friend, but also their bully to an extent. And they were very upset with them for controlling part of the West Bank, because they thought it was kind of prodding Israel, and they didn't like that they were taking in all these Palestinian refugees who have a very easy pathway to citizenship in Jordan because of the proximity. So they've it's definitely strained some relationships, but I think because they've taken on such a big load, when countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia have been able to avoid having to do so, it's kind of helped them get some foreign support as well. Because they also have pretty good relations with the West for a Middle Eastern country. So they have pretty good relations with the US and the UK. And I think in large part it's because they're more stable than pretty much every other country in the Middle East at this point, and because they're able to take in all these refugees.
You very infrequently hear over in America stories about Jordan because of that exact reason, I guess. Because it's like, obviously now Israel is, you know, the whole topic of conversation for good reason, but Saudi Arabia and Lebanon and even Qatar during the World Cup with the human rights stuff, and it's UAE for various oil reasons. You just don't really hear a lot about Jordan, which is why it's so interesting that they've come out of this region as one of the representatives for this particular World Cup. Probably the U.S. might have preferred that only Jordan made it and not Iraq and Iran, specifically
Yes.
Iran at this moment, but
Iran,
tough
who,
shit.
yeah, as I think this was announced like 2 days ago, Iran is going to be staying in Mexico and then traveling into the United States on game days and then leaving on game days for the World Cup.
You mean they announced that 3 weeks ago?
Well, they announced the U.S. announced they wouldn't host Iran. And I think Iran finally was like, "Here's our plan."
But that was 3 weeks ago, not 2 days ago.
Oh yes, because we're recording live.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Proceed with
anyway,
your Jordan of Jordan. Your story of Jordan, I should say.
Yeah. So Jordan's stability has allowed it to have one of the more stable soccer leagues in the region as well. It dates back to the 40s. It's been almost continuously played. They've had a few years off while dealing with some ramifications of wars with Israel and the Syrian civil wars as well, which have impacted their ability to play. 12-team league. There's a second division, so there's promotion and relegation between those two, but it's limited to only those two divisions. So you can't form like a fifth tier side and work your way up. It's only the top two. I couldn't find real attendance numbers. It seems like maybe around 6K per game for the top teams, right? So that's El Wedat and Al Fasali, which I'm probably butchering their names, but those are the top two teams in the region. Al Fasali, in particular, the Blue Eagles, they're based out of Amman, and they are head and shoulders the most successful club. They have 35 titles in the Jordanian league, and they're widely recognized as like the Jordanian club for people who are ethnically Jordanian. They have won 2 Asian Cups as well, which is their equivalent of the Europa League. So they've been a pretty successful club in the Asian competitions as well. Their big rivals are Al Wedat, which is named after a Palestinian refugee camp in Amman. So there is some ethnic ties with their big rivalry, and we've seen that play out in some of the riots and fan interactions in the past. So that it can get pretty strong between these two teams, but generally speaking, like it's not as violent as like a Roma Lazio derby, which kind of puts it in context that even though there are these huge ethnic divisions and it's a very personal connection to these clubs, even then, like compared to some of the European derbies, they're able to control themselves a little more. El Wedat have themselves won, I think 17 league titles. So these two combined 52 of the around 75 league titles. They are by far the dominant forces in the league. There has actually been kind of a new team that's popped up, Al Hussein, who've won the last 3 titles. I dug and dug and dug. I listened to multiple YouTube videos and podcasts and looked for articles. I couldn't find a single thing that talked about why they got good. Everything was just like, well, they started getting good 3 years ago. Now they're really good.
Were they like a team? Were they successful at all before? Were they a regular
no
first
league
division
titles?
side?
No league titles before. They have a decent history of being like a solid team, but just kind of got great out of almost nowhere. And if you look at their national team, you're going to see a lot of Al Hussein players on there. So they make up a huge portion of this current Jordanian success, and they're obviously contributing to it, but I couldn't really find why they're contributing to
Mm.
it. Um, I don't know if it's just new coaching staff that's come in. I don't know if it's a managerial thing. I couldn't find anything about like massive investment. And most of what I found was people having that same question as me and being like, I can't figure it out. Why? where where did all this success come from? But for the national team itself, soccer is the most popular sport in the country. Competes with pretty much any martial art you can name. They like doing that there. And basketball is pretty popular in Jordan as well, probably because it's named just like Michael Jordan. Pretty sure
Yeah.
named after
He's
him.
named
Correct?
after the country, right?
Oh, yes, you're right. That was
Yeah,
the order.
yeah.
So having a basketball player of that note named after your country is obviously going to lead to you being really into it. As we said, first World Cup. They've been to an AFC Asian Cup final, which they lost to Qatar in 2023. They had 2 quarterfinal appearances before that, but those were also 21st century. So it's been a lot more recent success for Jordan. Can probably attribute that to the massive boom in population because of the refugee camps they have. I mean, going from a population of like 1 million to 11 million, it's going to make you better at sports because you have more options to pick from.
Sure.
Their women's team is pretty strong for compared to other Middle Eastern countries. And while they don't have any honors to speak of, any trophies, they have consistently performed above where the men's team performs. So I guess that kind of just brings us to this current iteration of the team. They have Moroccan manager Jamal Salami, which I'm probably saying incorrectly because that just doesn't sound right, does it?
Why did you say it in such a such a goofy way? Salami?
Because it's not spelled like salami, but it's all the letters together feel like they should be
They should say
salami.
salami.
It's Sell, Sellami, right? So
Salami. Salami. Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
like
not
it's
salami.
yeah.
Salami.
So my
Yeah.
mind wants it to be something that
Salami, because you're Italian. You want to say
Yeah.
salami.
I want to say salami, but I feel like it can't be. But he played for Roja Casablanca in Morocco, pretty big club in that nation. He played for Besiktas, and he's kind of been cutting his teeth in Morocco before he got this Jordan appointment. And he is honestly like a really unknown manager to take over for Jordan. They've hired a lot of their non-Jordanian hires. They've usually gone for guys with bigger names. Harry Redknapp, Ray Wilkins, guys like that.
Harry Redknapp?
Harry Redknapp.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought that one would
What's
get
he
a
doing
reaction
in
from
Jordan? My guess is money.
you. Well, he was
but I'll
not
take
winning games.
Yeah.
He did not do well there. But they set up very defensively. It's a 5-4-1. It'll turn into a 3-4-3 when they attack. Build up out of the back a lot. I watched a couple of their games. Not sure that they have the players to be building out of the back. They tend to overplay and turn the ball over a lot. But their back line is very strong defensively. These guys do a really good job of recovering from those turnovers, organize themselves defensively. They're going to be tough to beat, especially because I bet they dial back the playing out of the back because they have a very tough group with Argentina, Austria. So it's Algeria right now. No, I'm trying to remember. I have it written somewhere in my notes, but it's a bunch of A teams. They got the group with all the A teams. So they tend to kind of push a lot of the defenders back into the box. And in attack, they like to get the ball wide, utilize their wingers. And you'll see they use a lot of...
It is Algeria.
Okay, I was right the
We
first
know
time.
that because the games are happening right now as we speak outside
Yes.
outside our windows.
Well, like actually outside my windows because
Yeah,
they play in Santa Clara.
Yeah, they play across the street from you.
Yeah, but they typically like to use inverted wingers, so a left-footed winger on the right wing, right-footed on the right-footed on the left wing, and have them cut inside, and then the wing backs will cover up, will boom forward and look to put in crosses. So it's a kind of a pretty standard looking 3-4-3 when they're in attack. The big difference I think you see from most other clubs that take this defensive approach is the emphasis on playing out of the back. However, like I said, I think they probably move away from that at the World Cup because of who they're playing. Like those are three of the stronger teams they could have drawn from each pot in the group stage. It's going to be
Yeah,
tough for
not
them.
doing that against Argentina, not doing that against Ranick's Austria, that's
Austria,
for
yeah.
sure.
So it's a tough group, but they got here pretty easily, and they would have qualified under the previous size World Cup as well because they won their AFC qualifying or came second in the AFC qualifying group. Didn't have to play any extra qualifying rounds. They finished behind South Korea, but ahead of Iraq, Palestine, Kuwait, and Oman. They do tend to play a lot of 0-0 and 1-1 road draws. That's what I noticed. So they definitely sat back defensively on the road and looked to beat teams at home, which is a pretty normal way to approach qualifying when the top two get through. And then in the winter, they had the Arab Cup, where they went all the way to the final for losing to Morocco in extra time. So they beat Iraq, they beat
Super
Saudi
impressive.
Arabia, they beat Egypt. And
Three World
obviously,
Cup teams.
some of those teams' best players, like Mo Salah, was not at the Arab Cup, but
Sure.
most of those rosters are made up of players from teams in the Middle East and North Africa who do take a break for this competition and do let their players go. So it's a big achievement to get to the final of the Arab Cup. And then this is kind of wrapping up. We're talking about some of their individual players. Their most if you recognize any name on the Jordan team, it would be Musa Al-Tarami, who plays for Rennes. He just moved there pretty recently. He's not a star player. He's a rotation guy. So kind of puts in context that there's not going to be a lot of household names on this team. These aren't guys that are playing around Europe. The vast majority of these players come from obviously most of them come from Jordan.
I
Vast
would think so.
majority are playing in Jordan, or nearby domestic leagues. Some playing in Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. Their kind of big focal point has been Ali Olwain, who is the striker. They kind of look to get him the ball in the box. He's a pretty clinical goal scorer. He's someone who can score in a variety of ways. Good on the cross. Really good at receiving and turning, taking a shot right away when he gets the ball with his back to goal. That strength of his. If they can get him into those positions, it'll be great. But I think finding those positions against some of their opposition will be a little harder than they're used to. They have a couple younger players as well. One I really want to highlight is Ibrahim Sabra, who's at Lokomotiv Zagreb. He's an exciting attacking talent. They also have Ude Al-Fakuri at Pyramids. I don't know much about him. I haven't watched a lot of Pyramids, but
It's a big club, though.
Yeah, he's very young and he's getting game time at Pyramids. I think that alone is enough for me to say, oh, this guy's probably pretty good. Yeah, so Al Hussein has repped most of these guys. It's where like most of the team is coming from. Alpha Sali, Al Vedat are the two other big clubs, but they have one really big miss. And since I went back and watched their Asian Cup games or Arab Cup games, this guy stood out so much. Yazan Al Nemot, and he tore his ACL during the Arab Cup. And you
Brutal.
could see the drop off in attacking quality once he got injured. So I think recovering from that, he'd been a key player in a lot of their qualifiers as well. So recovering from that is going to be difficult and obviously puts them in a much harder spot than before. But I hate to just keep harping on it, but they really got an unfortunate group because I think this team is solid, right? I think this is a really decent, lower end World Cup team that could have pulled an upset or a draw against a lot of opponents, but to get three of the stronger teams that they could have drawn, it's going to be really hard to see them getting a point. But I say that, and at the last World Cup, Saudi Arabia beat Argentina. And I think
the only team to do so.
Yeah, and I think this team is stronger than that Saudi Arabia team.
Really?
Yes,
I think they're stronger than Saudi Arabia now. Better than the one 3.5 years ago.
I think they're stronger than that team. I think it's a more complete team. That Saudi Arabia team had some stars, relative stars on it, but this Jordan team, I think defensively is a lot more sure than that Saudi Arabia team was. I think the midfield is where Saudi Arabia would look to win the game, but I think attack and defense, I lean Jordan, comparing those two squads. So there's a chance they could pull an upset, but I doubt that Argentina will overlook a Middle Eastern country again. And I think Austria and Algeria understand that they have to win the game against them, right? Like they don't have the ability to slip up in this one and still qualify. So I think for them, it's going to be a very tough group. And if they continue to try to play out the back, I just don't think that's going to work against, like you said, right? Like these other opponents are well set up to deal with that. And if you make a mistake, they're going to punish you in a way that most other countries can't. So it's going to be tough for Jordan, but I think they're still a solid squad, even if they end up with 0 points.
The fact that most of their guys play in Jordan, or at least in nearby Middle East countries, is and you're talking about the team and being at this level is an impressive. I mean, it points to the country's like internal development, in individual, but also like team building. The fact that they're able to develop players internally to be at this quality without having, I think like Georgia, like having like a guy to look at like Kvaratskhelia going abroad and making it big. Like they don't have like the star piece to both anchor the team with a world-class player, but also to sort of draw attention to the development of the sport. Not that it needs development as the most popular sport, but they don't have that, and yet they've still managed to sort of build ground up and surpass, at least in the last couple of years, some of their neighbors with, I don't want to say richer, but higher levels of international footballing history. Making World Cups consistently,
more money,
being
to
better
invest.
teams. Yeah, right.
Objectively,
Saudi Arabia has tons of money.
Egypt puts a lot more money into soccer.
Qatar just built their team out of literally nothing because they had the World Cup coming up, and they're like, "Oh shit, we gotta put a squad together."
How many Brazilians can we grab? No, I'm kidding.
Exactly.
They only had a couple, but yeah. So it is, I think, without that level of investment, very impressive what they've been building. And I honestly think not having like one star player playing in Europe is a benefit for this team, because we've seen sometimes nations that don't have full squads but have one star player. If you shut that down, suddenly they don't know what to do. They don't have a plan B.
Yeah, you want to funnel everything through that one outlet.
Yeah. I'm thinking like Sweden, when Zlatan was at his best, was really struggling internationally because teams would put 3 guys on Zlatan and they couldn't figure out a plan B to try to break teams down when Zlatan was marked out of the game. And Jordan have a plethora of players who are high enough quality to beat you on a given day. It's just, can they put it all together? Because they're going to need to play an A+ game to get a win at a World Cup.
Even a point. But we shouldn't talk too much about possible results, as who knows, maybe they would have gotten a win already at the time of release of this episode. I forgot what day we were
releasing this one, so.
But maybe we should have put these out earlier. I don't know. What do I know? I don't know anything. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed by their roster building. I do wonder if the next step for them is to, not like a superstar Kvaratskhelia type, like I was talking about, but to get people into the next level at certain ages, whether that's even at pyramids or
moving
clubs in North
Arabia.
Africa that are like elite in CAF, or getting teams to Rennes level European environments at a younger age, and like France or Germany, or some of the like Belgian, Danish league, the leagues that sort of or Austrian, the leagues that kind of develop young players as a trade.
I think Ibrahim Sabra is in a good spot to do that as well. At Lokomotiv Zagreb, that's a club that has sold players on to further development leagues as well, and I think he could be in a good spot to show that kind of development over the next few years.
Cool. Well, Jordan, you've done it. You've qualified for the your first ever World Cup, and it doesn't look like it's going to be the last. Looks like something that where it looks like a nation we're going to be seeing pop up a lot out of this region in the next couple of decades, and
especially with
maybe
the
even kick
expanded
on.
World Cup.
Oh, of course, yeah, hard to miss now. But yeah, they seem like now that they've elevated themselves on the level of not like an Iran that's kind of the regional staple of like or that's like kind of the benchmark of the Middle East at least. Um, but to surpass sort of even the recent superpowers, quote unquote, of like Qatar and Saudi Arabia in some ways. I'm not saying they're officially better than Saudi Arabia moving forward now, because that's probably not going to
I
be
mean, with
that
the money
linear.
Saudi is going to
Yeah.
be able to put into it, you'd expect they continue to produce some high quality
But the
players.
fact that
And
they've
they
just
have the
beaten a lot of
best
these teams
domestic league.
competitively, right?
Mhm.
But the fact that they've beaten a lot of these teams competitively recently in in tournaments and qualifying, I think speaks to the long-term success of the project, which is
Yeah,
kind of
it
exciting.
wasn't just that they got lucky in like a couple qualifying games. They've continually shown the ability to play at a high level against their Asian competitors, and now they get a chance to show if they can kick that on and get something at the World Cup.
We have a coach that's not Jordanian, so much like Curaçao, I think we should say cheers to the whole footballing nation of Jordan instead. And
That's fair.
allow them to reap their own nation's benefits. No offense to Jamal, I'm sure he's lovely, and I'm sure he's doing a great job. Cheers to Jordan.
Cheers.